So I decided to create this card pack to literally help people translate their lived experiences into their skills and qualities so they could discover it for themselves rather than me telling them that they were good at something. They could figure it out for themselves.
G'day, I'm Debra Caldow. Welcome to the Red Giraffe Solutions Expanding Worlds podcast, where we aim to support you as you help your young person with additional needs plan for their future, a future where they're safe, secure, and live a rewarding and fulfilling life. From around the world, I share stories and I share solutions from people making this possible right now. I'm a parent of a young person with additional needs, so I understand the challenges. Many of the people I've interviewed on this podcast have already helped me design a better future for my daughter, and I hope that they might help you as well to imagine what's possible for your young person. This podcast is made possible by Red Giraffe Solutions, which is a project I'm proud to be part of, supporting families to build a better future for their children. We now have available at Red Giraffe Solutions an online course called Independent Cooking Made Easy. This is a new and unique approach we developed when we realised traditional cooking techniques and recipes were never going to enable our daughter to cook without some support or supervision. It's a safe, simple system that uses no more than 5 ingredients, has no weighing, cutting or chopping, and no lifting of heavy dishes. Each of the 16 recipes in the course includes a step-by-step video of our daughter making the meal, plus a visual recipe card. We developed this for our daughter to solve her challenges with cooking, and every recipe in the course she can and does genuinely cook for herself. You can find a link to the course in this episode's show notes. Every now and then I have a guest on the podcast who I wish I'd met years ago, because I can see how much of a difference it would have made in the way that I supported my daughter on her journey. And one of those people is my guest this week, Katherine Jennick, founder of What's Your Strength. In a world where social media pushes us towards constantly comparing ourselves with others, she offers a simple and incredibly effective way to support our young people to connect their everyday lives with their strengths, so that they can have more confidence in their futures. I'd like to think that one of my strengths is knowing when to let my guests do the talking. So let's hear from Katherine about how this works and why it works so effectively. Katherine, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Can we start off by learning a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, I wear so many hats. Whenever people ask me what I do, I find it difficult to articulate it in a succinct way. But everything I've done in my career is been in the sort of education space, mainly with young people. It's always been about supporting them very holistically. So my sort of day job, if you like, is I'm a careers advisor, a career development professional. I've been a mentor in the past. I've done lots of different things with young people, but my focus is always to help them develop self-awareness and understand themselves better. Because I always say to the young people that I support, if you're going to understand one thing really well in your life, let that be you. So you know what your likes and dislikes are, what your strengths are, what your values are, what support needs you might have, what you're motivated by, all of that. So once they know themselves well, then they can figure out how to navigate their way in the world better.
How did you get into what you do now?
I did a psychology and social science degree at uni, and whilst I was there, I did lots of voluntary work with local primary schools and the youth offending team and various bits and bobs. I've worked in a centre for adults with learning difficulties. I was a learning mentor for a long time, and then I worked for what used to be Connections in the UK. So I was what's called a personal advisor and spent many years working with young people with additional challenges in their life to help them either get back into education or into employment or training. I've been in that sort of space ever since. So within the sort of career development field, but I do lots of work in schools, mainly with kind of 14 to 18-year-olds. I have done some work in primary schools and I have done some work with unemployed young adults as well. So What's Your Strength, which is the business I now run, started just over 5 years ago. And it started off literally as a pack of cards. It's now other things as well. It surprised me how many different types of people are using it now. You've got families using them at home with their own children. It's used in social care, in the prison service, all sorts of things. They're used very broadly now. But essentially, how it all came about was when I've been working with young people in the past, asking them questions about themselves, they were able to tell me about their life experiences, what they did, what they enjoyed, things like that. But they've really struggled to translate that into the strengths that they had. They found it really hard to tell me about what their skills and qualities were. Even if I was sitting there with them thinking, gosh, you're amazing. What an incredible young person you are. There was just this blocker. They just couldn't see it. And I noticed the same patterns over and over again over years. And it didn't matter whether that young person was somebody who was a really high achiever academically, or whether it was somebody who had additional needs, or whether it was somebody who on paper you would assume would feel really confident about their abilities, whether they spoke different languages, played different instruments, whoever it was, they just struggled to recognize their strengths. So I've always used very practical things in my guidance work and my mentoring. So different activities, visuals, kinesthetics, or practical tasks. So I decided to create this card pack to literally help people translate their lived experiences into their skills and qualities so they could discover it for themselves rather than me telling them that they were good at something. They could figure it out for themselves. So that was 5 years ago. And then, the rest is history, as they say, and it's evolved into more things now. So the initial cards were literally the size of a pack of standard cards, and they were aimed primarily at sort of 14 to 18-year-old sort of mainstream sort of school young people. They're in two sets in the pack. So there's a green selection of cards and there's a purple selection. And the green ones are based on school subjects, and the purple ones are based on activities, hobbies, life experiences, things like that. So the green ones, it's to try and get around that question of what's the point in maths? So I hate maths. I don't want to do maths. What's the point of it? So then what you do then on the back, you've got, oh, actually, it's going to help you become a better problem solver or whatever. So yeah, so there's the green ones, but the purple ones are my favorite because they're the ones that really delve into a young person's story. And I love giving young people the opportunity to tell their own story because they are the expert at their own story and there's nobody better to tell it than themselves. So yeah, so the purple cards have got all sorts of things on there. And I wanted to make sure that there was something for everybody. So you've got, I cook for family and friends, to I play an instrument, or I've got work experience. You don't have to have had money or opportunities that are very structured. It can be really everyday tasks. I have caring responsibilities. I like playing games, things like that. So they pick those cards, and that bit they find quite easy because it's just, yep, I do that. Yep, I play an instrument, or I'm in a sports team or whatever, and they pick their cards. Then they turn them over, and that's when there's just this magical moment when it just says, wow, your skills and qualities include, and then this really lovely list. So there is just this penny drop moment that you literally can see when they go, yeah, actually, because I play basketball, what that means is that I've got good leadership because when sometimes I might be the captain, or I'm a really good communicator with my teammates, or I've had to be really self-disciplined to get to my training every week or whatever. And they can then look at those skills and qualities and tell their own stories about when they've shown that particular strength. But the cards evolved into two more packs, one for adults. I had lots of adults reach out to me. It was during COVID. Lots of adults got in touch saying, I really love the concept of What's Your Strength. I really like using them. But actually, it's not just young people that find this question hard. Adults do as well, particularly when a lot of adults were finding themselves unemployed for the first time or having to sort of update their CV and hadn't done that for many years. They were really needing to reflect on themselves through that positive lens for their own self-esteem and self-worth, as well as actually being able to sell themselves to employers and figure out where they were going to thrive. And then the third pack, which is probably the one I'm most proud of actually, is the pack it's still called What's Your Strength, but it's called Let's Get Started. which was designed with people with additional needs in mind. And that came about from a conversation I had with a special needs school locally to me who used Watch Your Strength cards really effectively. Lovely stories about how she used them in school with EHCP meetings with parents to help them recognize the strengths of their children. Great examples. But she said, some of my young people, the cards themselves aren't quite accessible enough. I set to work with her and a group of SEN specialists to create that pack, the Let's Get Started pack. And although it's not exclusively a special needs resource, it has been made with that in mind. So it's got like special needs curriculum. The basis of the green cards are on their curriculum. The purple cards are reflective of the experiences of somebody with additional needs. So it's got things on there. I live with a disability, or I think differently, for example, that sort of thing. So there's the 3 packs. And then there's loads of free stuff. I create strength-based resources all the time, so they're all on my website. But I now offer all sorts of workshops, whether that be with young people in schools, helping groups of young people to recognise their strengths, but also with adults as well. So whether that be adults who are going to be in their jobs supporting young people, so how they can use strength-based tools within their practice, school staff and educators, how they can be more creative in their practice, or how they can use strength-based approaches to support their young people.
Can I just ask a question, which I don't want to get into this big discussion about the education system, but what's going wrong with education then if people aren't able to already do that without, you said there's a light bulb moment, so that means that they've never really had the opportunity to think about that. What can we be doing better in education? And I guess at home as well, for parents, what can we be doing better to enable our young people to actually see that so much easier, that rather than, I'm not trying to take away your business.
Yeah, no, not at all. Because actually, I'm not here to say you have to have these cards to be able to have these conversations, because actually you can spot strengths all the time. You don't need a pack of cards to be able to do that. Nobody needs to buy a pack of cards. It's about looking and watching, and strengths are there if you look hard enough. Or if you just not even look hard enough, you don't have to look hard. It's just if you just observe your own child or the children that are in your life, or the class in front of you, whoever it is, there are strengths there. I think, oh gosh, it's a big question, isn't it? About, we could have a podcast in itself about the education system. And I would say that certainly the teachers and the educators I know would agree that there is problems in the education system. There is an inflated curriculum of content that teachers have to try and get through. And they then are then passing that on to young people. So there is that sense of all you're having to do is learn and cram in content of a subject, rather than actually that skills-based project work where actually you're having an opportunity to demonstrate a skill that you have within that subject. So I'm a real advocate for project-based learning, where there might be a project that is loosely related to a subject or multiple subjects, because that's the dream, is to have subjects that are, there's a thread between them. And in that project, a group of young people or a young person on their own might be using a set of strengths to tackle that project. But then there's always that reflection of what strengths are you using, which strengths are you going to need for this project, and then being able to demonstrate them. If we think about the world of work, whatever job you're doing, you have some kind of project to tackle, and you have to use different skills or bring in other people's skills to tackle that project. And I would love to see more of that way of learning in our education system. There's amazing examples in the Finnish system who do phenomenon-based learning and project-based learning. I'd love to see more of that over here.
Careers people that are in the schools then are that link, really, aren't they, between that kind of very structured learning and then trying to give people skills to go into the workplace. And it seems that you hear a lot about companies saying, actually, young people come out of school or university, they're actually not ready for work.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. With my sort of careers advisor hat on, I can empathise with both sides, because it's too easy to say, oh, it's the school's fault or it's the employer's fault, because actually there is a gap, and it's everybody's responsibility to narrow that gap. As schools helping them to prepare, as employers understanding where they've come from, careers advisors in the middle trying to be the glue, and parents and carers supporting that transition and preparing for adulthood. It's everybody's responsibility. It takes a village, to raise a child. It's the same when it comes to preparing our young people for the future. And we're preparing them for a completely unknown future at the moment as well, because the pace of change is so fast. And in terms of the world of work, we don't know what's around the corner. In the next few years, new things are coming along at such a rate. So actually, rather than preparing a young person for a particular job role or a particular company or a particular industry, what we want to do is equip them with the career management skills that they're going to need to go forwards. So do they have the ability to create networks and communicate with people? Are they curious to go and explore the world around them? Have they got that self-awareness of themselves, their strengths, things like that? Are they able to plan effectively? All of those sorts of career management skills are going to help them navigate their career wherever they end up going. And I think quality career guidance helps young people with that, to look at themselves and how they're going to navigate their career rather than what job do you want to do.
One of the things we want to do for our children is to provide them with everything they need to navigate the world. A toolbox of resources, if you like. And the ideas behind What's Your Strength, and the cards of course, certainly deserve a place in that toolbox. In next week's episode, I continue my conversation with Katherine, where we talk about why our young people struggle with identifying their strengths, as well as why it's important to let them do the work on this, rather than us doing it for them. We also talk about the issues around traditional interview techniques, and why these need to start to adapt to a changing world of work. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that the stories and solutions shared on here help you as you support your young person to create their future. If you know anyone who would find the ideas useful, please share the podcast with them. To support the podcast, please consider finding out more about the Independent Cooking Made Easy online course. It's a safe, simple system that works. There are links to the course in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn at Debra Caldow. I'd love to have a conversation with you on any of the topics we all care about. Bye for now.